Today I'm with Linh Smooke. She is the COO of the independent, the now very independent Hacker Noon publication that has over, I think David, when I spoke to David, he said 1 to 2 million readers per month. Mm-hmm. And he said, I think 8 million different page visits per month, mm-hmm. which is a lot, which is so cool. So I'm sure that takes a lot of crazy operational stuff that you get to deal with day in and day out. And I'm under the impression that you were kind of the big mover and shaker in the movement off of Medium and onto this independent equity funding round process for Hacker Noon. So could you tell me a little bit about what the vision was there? Why did you decide to crowdfund with equity?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, thank you, Amber, for having me here today. Very excited.
Of course, me too.
I think I used to do a lot more talk shows than this when I used to lead the Asia division for a university. And then I kind of like stepped back being a mom for like 2 years and now like slowly going back on the road. So Hacker Noon, like you say, requires just a lot of things, behind the curtains. Mm-hmm. And one of those is basically making sure that we're taking care of our people, making sure that we pay attention to our community. Mm-hmm. So, the 8 million page views that you mentioned, it comes from our community of readers and of writers. We have 8,000 writers and 200,000.
Impressive.
I mean, yeah, a lot of them are just, like founders or CEOs like, yourselves. And it's really more like they want to amplify their voices. So they use Hacker Noon as a platform to help them with that. But we do have 8,000 of them and we have 200,000 daily readers. Some of them are these writers community themselves. But we have a problem to solve back in I think May of 2018, which is we are super dependent on a larger company, a larger platform. Everything else is built by us. So, the recruiting of the stories, mm-hmm. The distribution of the stories, making sure that, people's getting even more readers for their content. But, the platform that we were building on did not agree with that, so we had to do something about it. So my idea was, okay, so we have a community, we're running a pretty profitable business. Maybe if we tell our story to the community, they would rally behind us. And I think this is what I can confidently say after running the equity crowdfunding. Before that, I didn't know. An equity crowdfunding success really depends on whether or not you already have like a large army of like supporters. And luckily we already have that, and we just kind of dive more into our already is our strength. Mm-hmm. And we kind of tell them that this is what we as the business is struggling with, as a reader, as someone who benefits from the site, would you like to own a piece of the site? Mm-hmm. And and people are like, yeah, like I would be on board with that. And I'm very, very grateful for people's rallying behind us. I think that's the biggest blessing.
Yeah, that's a huge blessing. I feel like that's kind of a big trust fall. Mm-hmm. It would make me nervous. Were you nervous when you started this? Like, did you ever have the thought, like, what if people don't rally behind us? Or mm-hmm. were you fairly confident?
Yeah, I did spend 3 months like feeling tremendously pressured by the thought that what if no one shows up?
Right.
There's definitely that possibility because people are busy. We're talking about the attention economy all the time. People have so many different channels and platforms that they can pay attention to. Why Hacker Noon, right? Like, mm-hmm. why this one site? I think the thing that really resonates with people is the word independent, like indie tech site. Like people just like to know the story behind it, and people are oftentimes super surprised that it's run by a team of 2. I mean, at the time it was totally a team of 2, me and my husband David. And since then we've recruited a bunch more awesome people, developers, marketers. But yeah, back then it was just a team of 2, and people would just kind of, I think, giving us some sympathy for the fact that we're pretty small, pretty independent, and pretty ballsy for that matter.
Yeah.
Like going up against these big guys and be like, we're gonna go, outside
Yeah.
of your platform. Ta-da.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, not just moving away from the platform, but also turning down offers to be acquired as well.
Yeah. We were panicking a little bit when the news hit that we couldn't. We could still operate under the Medium banner, but we could not really monetize any of that, and that was one big thing for us. We were running it. David was running it for 3 years without really doing anything like monetary wise, and then we found kind of a perfect way to do so without kind of distracting people, because the main thing we want people to be able to get from Hacker Noon is the reading experience and awesome text story. How do we incorporate advertisers and ways so that we could sustainably run the site? So we found a perfect way for that. We put banner up on the site, just everyone can see it. No one is forced to click on it. No one, like
You're not tracking cookies.
Yeah, there's no tracking whatsoever. So people can just either choose to engage with it or ignore it. So I think that's a perfect way for a very tech and sometimes security focus audience, right? So they feel fine with that. We have no complaints. Now that has been running for 8 months until Medium told us that, well, you guys know what? We can't allow third-party sponsorships anymore on the site, and we were really confused with that because the term third party to us means that's anyone that's not Hacker Noon or Hacker Noon readers, because we're serving one group of people, and that's the readers. So Medium really is a third party to us. But that aside, they told us that we have to do something about it. We can choose to either just take that offer. They did offer us something pretty laughable, but they did. Or we can do something else. So we did do something else. We reached out to a couple of other people, some blockchain companies, some longtime, readers of Hacker Noon, just to gauge what, people are thinking about this, small group of people. Most people say, sure, I would be happy to help you, support you, acquire you, whatever, but, you still have to work on this company. And, basically nothing would change except for that your ownership would be from 100% to I don't know, something really small.
Yeah.
So when faced with those choices, we decided that it's just a lot better for us to still own the business, but just do it on our own terms and raise some money instead of just giving a piece of our business to someone else.
Yeah. So how many different publishers do you think were affected by Medium's new no third-party policy? Was it quite a few, or are you kind of rare?
Oh my goodness. I think every single publisher, who bets their business on Medium is definitely severely affected by this news. A lot of them actually made the move to just leave Medium before this already. I mean, it might be some other factors, but a lot of them have left the platform already. And I think since then, a couple tens, hundreds, I don't know, have also decided to do something else. At the very least, diversify, their different channels, not just on Medium.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how many have decided to go fully independent and kind of crowd-owned like you have?
I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not know the exact number. I've been just laser focused on Hacker Noon and how to really deal with this news and what to do with the fund, what to do with the investors after we crowdfunded.
Yeah. And so moving forward, it's crowd-funded and crowd-owned to some extent, but how you're still making money through sponsorships just now on an independent site, right?
Yeah, so we can't currently monetize our main asset, which is hackernoon.com, because hackernoon.com is still hosted on Medium.
Oh, okay.
However, we can monetize anything that is not powered by the Medium infrastructure. So for example, we have a podcast as well going on that has been monetized since day one. So there's that. We also have a couple of like other smaller channels, like event sponsorships. We're actually going to London in 2 days from now, doing an event in Shoreditch in central London. We also did...
What kind of an event are you doing?
So it's going to be called Crazy Tech Stories. And, our model is really simple. We invited a bunch of people who are based in whatever location, who have written to Hacker Noon. So last time we did, it was a tech event at GitHub, and we literally just like filter for people who live in San Francisco who have written for Hacker Noon and ask if they would like to give a talk. So we did the same thing with the London event, and 7 people would give talks at the event, and we have marketed the event for the past few days.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's very neat.
So aside from event sponsorships and podcast sponsorships, we also pre-selling sponsorships for the new site. So this is like our way of being
That's right,
little creative here. Since we can't really monetize on the Medium platform right now, we would like to get like a wait list basically of people who believe in us enough, even though they haven't seen the new site, to just kind of like, okay, you want to buy this many clicks for a discounted price, and a lot of people have bet that we would be able to pull it off and the new site would be able to bring as much traffic. So yeah, that's kind of reducing the risk on both sides. So those are, I think, the main 3. And I also just recruited recently one sales person that would help me more with like other product and services that we might want to do in the future.
That's very neat. So when will Hacker Noon be on its own independent platform?
Everyone wants to know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time wait for sure, but I think it's worth it because so our developers team have been working so hard even before the crowdfunding, because we just kind of like bet on ourselves that the crowdfunding would work and already hire someone, before it started, and with the hope that it's going to turn out great. And it did. So we now have a team of 2 full-time developers, and they have been very, very hard at work for the past 3 months. And every day we going to the beta site, finding some new thing. We very, very hopeful, finger crossed. I don't want to say one definitive date, but it's just right around the corner. It's very, very close.
So probably in the next few months.
No, I think we're talking days or even weeks.
Wow,
yeah.
Very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
So it might be out by the time this podcast is out. We'll see.
Oh my goodness, it might. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. It's like time traveling and trying to imagine.
Yeah.
Well, neat. So I want to back up a bit and hear a little bit about your background in college. So you had mentioned being on this doing broadcasts before.
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
So I went to Brown University.
Oh, cool.
So I think I even want to back up a little bit more because, my journey has been really, really education focused thus far. So I was born in Vietnam, and I went to just, regular Vietnamese schools for the first 17 years. Well, like whenever I started school. So, and then I actually went to India for high school for 2 years. So it's like this program of international kids, like 200 different kids from 100 different countries. So that was really, really amazing for like kind of my rite of passage into like this life I have right now. It's like opened my eyes to this like little Vietnamese local, like never been anywhere, to like India. And then after that, after those 2 years, I went to the U.S. for 4 years in college. And I really, for some reason, it was set in my heart that I want to do something with education. I think it's because of the education opportunity I had, that I was just thankful and I wanted to do something and give back. So I did a little bit of dabbling here and there, some education, some poli-sci classes, some international development, just like many, many things. What I realized I didn't want is just so much theory, because, that's what happened a lot in colleges. people tend to get really wrapped up into the details of the theories instead of like looking into like solving like actual companies' problem or actual real world problems. I'm not like saying theory does not matter. It totally does. To me though, it's just like I want more than just theory.
Yeah, you wanted to get your hands dirty.
I do. And I did and I still do. So in sophomore year, after like going through so many theory classes for different concentrations, that's what they call it at Brown, like not majors, but concentrations, I decided that, you know what, like all of these classes will not teach me a lot. Maybe I try to just start something on my own and like learn from it. So in the basement, I still remember of my sophomore year, dorm, I like came up with this idea for like a TED conference slide, but like for middle school students. And it's going to be longer than just conferences and talks. It's going to be like teaching them like hands-on skills, but then it'll like accumulate into like a presentation of some sort into the at the end. And so it's called Creative Kid Project, and it's been going on for I think now 7-8 years now. Like back then it was just like my little like pet, like summer camp project that I could just go back to. But now it's become a lot bigger than myself. It's become its own nonprofit. It's like constantly funded by different organizations in Vietnam, and it's graduated, I think, about I want to say 1,000 students.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So yeah, it has become its own thing. But from that experience, I realized that, oh, that's where that's the kind of thing I want to do. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to be super involved into the community. And I just want to be able to create something that's bigger than myself. Like, just the name, the brand, the whatever. Like, I don't need my name to be on there for it to be a successful thing. Like, it just needs to be something that runs on its own. So that's why whenever I get the opportunity to, like, run Hacker Noon alongside with David, I was just like, yeah, this goes back to my desire to just do something a lot bigger than myself, and I think I'm going to be very good at it. But I skip ahead, a lot of the story there. I mean, I did become a mom. I did kind of worked for 2-3 years at this university that's San Francisco based. Actually, it's called Minerva, and so I worked for Minerva for 3 years, and they were really ambitious. They tried to kind of reimagine, how college campus would work.
I've only heard a little bit about Minerva,
but
it's like it's less. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's something like it's less campus-based and more go out and learn. You should tell the story because you work there. So what is it?
Yeah, so it's been a while, so I'm going to try to remember. So it's 7 different cities, so like it's like a rotation-based program, but people can opt in or opt out of the program. The main thing is that people don't have to show up to physical locations to learn, So they develop this active learning platform. They're very, very tech focused. So they have this engineering team built a very interactive platform where students can actually like vote and do like real time, polling and whatnot in class, interacting 1-on-1 or 3-on-1 with a professor. So that's I mean, I was sold on like the very first time I listened to it. The managing director of Asia actually gave a talk at a job that I was working on. I was a teacher at the time, and I listened to the story of Minerva and was like, oh, this is perfect. I mean, I'm just going to ask him if I can help with anything because I'm a teacher. I was a teacher at the time. Maybe I can talk to more students about it. Basically, the idea is global, rotation, 7 different cities, active learning, a lot of hands-on community services, because outside of, if they don't have a physical campus, what are they going to do? Like they will need, something to do in the city. So there's a lot of local integration and like learning more about the actual culture of where they, will visit. And I just thought that was such a neat idea. So yeah, I came on board, I think in 2014 as the regional director of Southeast Asia. And I worked like that for 3 years.
So what does that role do? I mean, this is...
it basically
unique position.
It's like an evangelist kind of role, basically for the Southeast Asia, part of the world for Minerva, because at the time no one knew what Minerva was, and I mean, it's anything from like going to campuses, going to different high schools, talking to parents, setting up partnerships, doing a bit of social media there as well. Anything, because Southeast Asia is really, really into social media, especially Facebook. So have to like build like a big Facebook presence there. A lot of talks as well. So like, when you're like talking about this idea of a new university, like you basically have to convince people that this is cool. And I see myself more like as a enthusiast and education person that's just like really, believing in that model, and it was just going around talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all your background in education, actually right now I'm a visiting scholar at Stanford through the education department, even though that's not what my training is in, traditionally. And
how's that been for you?
Good, interesting. I've gotten to sit in on the Center of Adolescence. That's where I'm at. I've gotten to sit in on some of their research meetings, and it's been interesting because they've been discussing like a project for understanding aspects of a liberal arts education that contribute to the development of purpose, and specifically beyond the self-purpose, which is another theme that you've been talking about. And it's actually in one of those research meetings that I first heard about Minerva, because they were trying to get a bunch of universities that were pretty unique from each other.
Yeah, they're very big on like intentional university. That's like the word they use, because there's like some stats about how most of college costs and stuff goes to administration and not really to like like college has gotten like 2 or 3 times as more expensive, but not 2 or 3 times better since like that research started. So
so in your opinion, I mean, the divide between the tech world, which you're now in, and education is kind of an interesting one, because it seems like the tech world sort of snubs their noses at education, and is like, well, just drop out and do startup. What's kind of your take on that split?
I don't think that as someone who has worked in tech for a while now, you can omit altogether the value of just physical connection and the value of personal communication, right? Like there's like when I was working at Minerva, a lot of the concerns from the parents were like, okay, so how can you get like the full experience from just a platform that like you just see on the screen? And it's valid, like to some extent. And I think the most important thing when it comes to learning is just like the sense of purpose, the sense of like they actually are receiving something or doing something that like they actually want to do. And it depends on like different like learners' style, right? Like some people are very self-motivated and can just like go out there, get their hands dirty, or actively seeking new things to learn. But some people need a little bit more guidance, and that's a value of a teacher, like they serve as a guide. And as someone who was a teacher before, I don't think we can just say, oh, like the tech cannot replace the teachers. Like there's a lot of time that tech can elevate and amplify, what a teacher can do, what a guide can do. But at the end of the day, you still need like that human touch and that physical connection. So I think that divide, instead of being a divide, it should be kind of like something that works, in tandem, and like elevate and help enhance each other. It's just, maybe a teacher, instead of having a lot of administrative tasks and do a lot of like manual things that it's not really teaching, now they can focus on like, okay, how do I help my students become better? And then how, this whole machine learning can just like help me like summarize what my students want, as a whole. And like now I can like focus on like lesson planning instead of just like going through every single entry.
Yeah. So just for personal interest, because of the project that's going on in the center that I'm at, and as you've spoken a lot about purpose yourself and education, what in your experience do you think contributes, how does education help either develop or help people pursue purpose?
That's a good question. I think for me personally, it's not really any one class or any one theory or one teacher per se, or yeah. So it's the experience and the kind of discourse that I have with many people over time that contribute to who I am today. So education should be viewed as like this journey, for you as a person. Just kind of like if I take just that one class, or if I just have one conversation with that person, I will feel very interested in that topic. But that's where it's at. Just feel very interested. It sparks my interest. How do I continue that conversation, and how I put that, contextualize that into something bigger? I think that's the purpose of education. And it's really hard to do even within 4 years. I don't think it's something that people can just fully develop within 4 years. But, that kind of desire to just continue the conversation and put that into something bigger, contextualize it and, like juxtapose it with something else. That is the purpose of education. And I think that's why it's just going to continue for the rest of your life, right? Like right now, I'm still learning a lot. I was joking with David that I feel like I'm doing my MBA right now, just like learning all of the nitty gritty of like what it takes to run a company, Intuit, QuickBooks and payrolls and HR and all of that. I feel very much immersed and educated right now.
Yeah. You're getting a crash course in a whole new,
definitely,
a whole new area. Absolutely. So you had mentioned like a diversity of voices and people and ideas kind of interacting, and that education might be sort of just a ripe nexus for having all these experiences. Right. Not that it's something you can't get by just having a crash course and helping run this startup.
Yeah.
But some people might need a guide through that.
Yeah.
So how do you think that Hacker Noon kind of advances this purpose? Because you've mentioned to me a few times kind of similar themes of like, well, there's a lot of different voices and decentralization is important to the end of having a lot of different voices. Right. Do you see those as connected, or was that just sort of a serendipity, accidental happenstance that you found yourself in a position of running a platform, the nitty-gritty of running a platform that's so diverse?
Yeah, to be really honest with you, it's a little bit of both. I don't think we will be where we are today without, some kind of luck and, like fate, you might even say, involved. But a lot of it, the intention a lot of times comes after we have been put in this very lucky position. Like, what do we do to really make the most out of it? And I think what we did really well is to kind of have been this reflection of the internet to people, like why other sites, other forms of journalism, it's a different kind of internet, at times. It's like very very heavily edited, very, very intentional, and people kind of know what to expect when you go to the site. Like when you come to Hacker Noon, it's really just like it's like a free for all kind of a thing. I mean, we do have an editorial process, but it's really more like, is it too promotional? Is it, like plagiarism, like something like that? And like, what about the grammar? But in terms of like policing what people's opinions is, like, we don't do that. So really, like, I think that's what attracted people a lot to Hacker Noon. Just kind of, wow, I can have my own voice, I can have my own story, and it's a contributors driven network, so like anyone can contribute. That's awesome. And I think a lot of times people don't even realize that until like they actually go through the process submitting their first story and the second story and the third story, and they're like, oh, this is actually a thing. Like people just like that, like you accept my story just like that. So I think like at the end of the day, like just as a whole, we create this really cool place for people to be able to just express their own opinion, express their own voice, and it's decentralized, just like you say. It's whatever the internet is, we reflect it. And, at the time, we didn't even know what blockchain was or Bitcoin was. But then the internet said, now this is one of the things that people really want to talk about. So now you see this like influx of submissions on blockchain on Hacker Noon. And we did not really set out to do that at all. We just kind of saw it and we ride the wave. And, we learned a lot along the way as well. And I think we're going to continue doing that. Just kind of wait for the submissions and review them. And there you go.
Yeah, I know that kind of echoes my experience, because in academics, it is such a grueling process to get papers published, and takes oftentimes years. The first publication I ever had took like 5 years to go from running the study to getting it actually published. Yeah. And that was maybe a little bit on the long side, but it's definitely not unheard of. It's not all that rare. And so when I first published on Hacker Noon, I had that same experience as like, whoa, this is like refreshing that I can submit something, and the review that you get back, instead of it being this really critical peer review process, which is good and it is important, it's just a different beast from something like Hacker Noon, where you're publishing and you're getting the review back in the comment section, not in a pre-print process. And I think that it's valuable, because you see, like the analogy of like riding a wave, you can see how the wave crashes and how people have reacted to it, and then how subsequent blogs and articles are written and that trajectory over time. Right. It's sort of a unique voice that you don't necessarily see in other outlets.
Yeah, I mean, and by lowering the barrier to entry, right, we invite just more people who typically are not a writer, like they probably wouldn't share this story otherwise. But we tell them that, like, look into all of these other stories. You don't have to have your story super polished or your writing being on this and that level. You still can publish with us. And I think, and we also don't pretend to be like, no, this is like the peak of journalism, this is the Wall Street Journal or whatever. Like, it has gone through like multiple fact checks and like multiple, which is very valuable. You need that kind of journalism. You need peer reviews for academic paper, because people are going to base this academic paper on like actual, like, like life or death stuff, or like, things that like really, really going to affect your life. I mean, off tangent a little bit. The whole anti-vaccine thing was based on one faux academic paper. Yeah. It was scary, but it didn't get disputed until like 20 years after. But it was one academic paper that people like have held on to the belief that
damage done.
The damage has already done 2 decades after. But
so how do you address this because, I mean, along those kind of lines, you're not fact-checking. It is a different beast. Do you think that the readers are aware of this and the contributors are aware of that?
Yeah, I think for the most part, people are aware of it, but we do run into situations where we have to put out fires at times. Just like 2 days ago, we kind of just randomly went out of our way to like check this one article, and we saw that it's actually already been published by someone else with like a different name on a different site. And like we do that because a lot of the times people who like just blatantly plagiarize, like they don't even change a thing, like you can just Google the whole thing within the quotation mark and then you'll see like something else. So we do try to do that, but sometimes things fall through the crack, and this was that one time. So what we did was we immediately noticed the writer that he has violated our rules, which clearly say that you have to, have the rights to all of your words. You can't just like use someone else's. And we kind of took away the right of the writer to submit on Hacker Noon. I mean, other instances, we have someone who talked about something controversial, but I mean, it depends on what you, as a platform, as a publication, consider controversial, right? Like like what is the meaning of hate, for example, or what is a topic that makes certain group uncomfortable? Like we can't polish like too nitty-gritty into that, but I think we do still need an umbrella policy into like no plagiarizing, like that's for sure. and kind of no inciting like actionable violence.
Yeah.
Something like that. Controversial, some like that guy was talking about biohacking. Certain sponsors actually would not take that, and we did kind of like lose one sponsor over that, but we wouldn't take that one article off our site. It really is not in accordance with our ethos to do that kind of policing. Yeah.
So how do you decide like which, you're getting about 25 articles a day, I think, right?
20 to 30, yeah.
20 to 30 a day. How do you decide like the ranking order and how you organize things? And
so it really just before it's first come first serve, because we only have 2 people, and that's like we found that that's the most efficient way, and that means like most of the articles will at least get someone to look at. Now we kind of divide them into 4 rough categories. So there's general tech, there's Bitcoin, specifically, then there's blockchain and other cryptocurrencies, and then there's software development. So within those categories, the editors would just look into the articles and like have their own standards, and look into what they want to review. And most of the times they would get through most of the things, but since we actually recently introduced this new submission system where people can submit a lot more easily than the Medium system. So we're a little bit behind on that. But I think, for the most part, people try to just submit, review the stories within the categories of their choosing, and then review all of them.
And then they just
try
kind
to get
of
through all of them.
Okay. Yeah. And they kind of put them by preference, or I guess I'm thinking like above the fold stories, below the fold stories, you have like a few main ones on your site and then a few lesser ones.
Oh, you mean the homepage? Yeah, so the homepage is actually curated just by people's taste for now. Also, it's actually a combination of people's taste and how can we even amplify this story more? Like, would that benefit our readers to put this story on the homepage? So it's sometimes really objective, but sometimes it's not at all. Like, it's just like people's preferences, and that's what you get for, like submitting stories to a site that's run by humans with like actual taste, right? So we don't prioritize things like, oh, if I pay you, like, can I put it on homepage? Like, we never, we never do things like that. Or we don't prioritize things that just clearly are clickbaity, like have like titles that we know, like 20 things and 10 things. I mean, sometimes those listicle stuff really rank well on SEO, but we recognize that most people on HackerNoon actually prefer like honest, like long form, like in-depth technical stuff, sometimes super long-winded, but like those are the ones that we really can amplify, because where else can you see like a super long article, right? Like most long articles you can see is from like other like really like journalistic places, and blog style, they like tend to like have a short, really clickbaity bias, and we kind of go against that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about your role as a COO and kind of all of the back end of things that people might not be aware of. What does the average day look like for you behind the scenes on this? I mean, HackerNoon is actually it has a huge readership.
Yeah.
So what's it like to try to manage that many, like, contributors who now also, after this equity round, are also kind of like little bosses? How do you manage all of that?
Yeah, so right now we have 1,200 little bosses. So these, most of them are readers of HackerNoon. We have 4 full-time employees, and we have an army of like 10, 15 contractors, part-time people. So my day-to-day is really trying to take care of our people, right? Like just trying to do them right. And, that means things like pay them or making sure that we can pay them. So like, like the cash flow of the business actually works, making sure that we are doing things legally, checking all the documents. a lot of it has to do with training as well, because a lot of time, you know, the moment people would start making money for you to like the moment they actually like losing a lot of money, like there's like a point to it. So it's kind of like this kind of curve. So when we like first start onboarding people, it's just it will take a long time for them to actually like fit into this whole machine and like, you know, just be independent on their own. So yeah, I invest a lot of my time on training materials and just like hours of like sometimes just, you know, hands-on walking with people on like where they need to go. I don't pretend to know anything like tech, like super in-depth tech related. So all of the software developers, those are like actually my favorite because they like teach me so much. And you know, for those, like I actually learn a lot from them as well. But my day to day is like, yeah, checking Slack, like making sure that there's like no fires to be put out. Like that's something that people don't see like on a front facing site, like, oh, it's just going so smooth. You know, like it's going smooth because there's just certain fires, you know, that you don't get to see. So yeah, a lot of my job is like, okay, like there's this fire to be put out, like what do I do about it? So checking Slack, like checking out site to see like if there's any like new article like that's worth amplifying. And by amplifying, I don't just mean like put them on the homepage. We have a whole team now that does like more than that. So we, you know, putting the articles on like different social media channels, or like maybe, you know, possibly put it on like a podcast episode, you know, contacting this person to see if they want to do an AMA, things like that. So like what else can we do outside of like publishing these stories? Then right now my focus has actually been to communicate one-on-one with our writers about the move off Medium, because a lot of people have heard of this, you know, definitely the people who have heard of the crowdfund, but not many people know that we are not just like talking about it, we actually moving off Medium. So like communicating on like different channels with writers, making sure that they understand what that means and like the terms, if they have any questions about that. So I've been working on that for the past few months now, just,
Yeah.
you know, going through all of our writers.
Yeah, I imagine, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of the big beast that nobody wants to deal with is moving, like trying to get their traction to follow them off of a platform, because you're really fighting a lot
Right.
of you know, an object at rest wants to stay at rest. Most people don't want to move
Yeah.
off and figure new things out.
The best course of action that anyone can take, like in terms of their self-interest, is like nothing. You know, like if they have to do nothing, that's great. If they have to do just one thing, then you really have to convince them that it's the
Yeah.
right course of action.
So how difficult has that been? What % of the readers and writers are, well, I guess it's really just writers at this point that
Writers,
you're...
yep.
Yeah. What portion have you gotten to move over to?
So
These other
we
communication
haven't
channels.
moved anyone over yet, because once the site switched, that's when people can move over. But in terms of the people who we communicated to, I think over half of our library have been communicated and agreed to, and like the other half, it's not like they haven't heard of. They might have more questions, and they might want to just like take a little bit more time to look into it. But most of the people who have, you know, like explicitly opted into to moving to the new site, you know, we have like multiple times, you know, have to like email them, social media, like DM them and all of that, like all one-on-one. So we understand that, you know, people are busy, and not just like you just send them an email and that's it. Like you really have to follow through with your communication. But I actually really enjoy that work, because, you know, like they're talking about like knowing your audience all the time. Like this is how you do, like you actually, you know, tell them about this, and they're like, oh, by the way, my business is going in this direction, and I have this like upcoming piece that I really want to amplify. Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, okay, like how that's been. Oh, great business. Yeah, like we're gonna schedule it for Monday. So it's been really good in terms of kind of deepening our relationships with our writers, who are basically the nuts and bolts of this business, and you know, because they're so important, and we want to do them right.
Yeah.
You included.
Oh, thank you. Well, it sounds like you're separating the wheat from the chaff in this process because, you know, the people who are dedicated to the platform are going to follow, and the people who aren't dedicated might fall by the wayside, but oh well.
That's a great way to think about it, because we really want people who want us,
Right.
You know, who enjoy and get a lot out of Hacker Noon, and if that means moving off the platform, like would show you that's awesome. Yeah.
So, what would you say to any Hacker Noon writers that might be listening to this that haven't switched off of their old communication network so far?
Yeah, sure. So, I think a lot of people don't know that just by moving off Medium doesn't mean that you can't publish on both sides. So that's like, you know, first thing off the bat, like you can just do both. Your, you know, original articles that were hosted on Medium will still stay there. You know, you will still retain your power to edit them. Even when we move off, we wouldn't take away your right. But with the new Hacker Noon, it's going to be truly, you know, independently Hacker Noon. So we will do things like amplify the publish button. We make sure that people can actually message the writers, and the writers can have a real connection and call to action to their whole community. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to make sure that a Hacker Noon writer feels, you know, great about being on Hacker Noon. With that said, you can still publish on both sides, and that is something we want to also make clear. Like, we don't think publishing is like an all be all, like just one person monopolizing the whole thing is a good thing. Like, we think the more places you get to publish, the better. It works better for us now that we off the platform, but maybe we're still publishing on Medium, you know. So if you haven't moved over, I don't see a reason why not.
Yeah.
It's just going to be amplify your content and your audience even more.
So on the back end of things, again, just coordinating and operating a huge network of people seems like a gigantic task. How do you, just personally, how do you manage all of that?
Sometimes I think I'm awesome at that, and sometimes I think that, oh my God, like, how do I even imagine? Like, I don't even know, like, 1,000 people, you know, and like to really to be on a day-to-day basis, like working with thousands and hundreds of thousands, that just seems too overwhelming of a concept. But really, my day-to-day doesn't deal with like that number. You know, it's more like the people closest to our business, which is, you know, the people actually working on Hacker Noon, and the partners and the sponsors, and, you know, accountants and, you know, people like that. I think the pressure comes whenever like that's something that's go outside, like, you know, of the normal day to day. So about a few weeks ago, Medium did send this like email to all of our contributors saying that, okay, Hacker Noon might be going around talking about moving off Medium, like watch out for that email. And that was like a day that I realized the pressure of like serving so many people, because all of a sudden, and we have a lot, like we have hundreds of messages, you know, inbound messages coming in about the move, which we might have to thank Medium for, because before that, like some people might not even notice there was an email coming to them. But then on that day, like out of like the hundreds of really, really positive messages, there were some negative ones that we have to deal with. And, you know, people like just talking about just, you know, variety of different things. And we just have to kind of, you know, put our heads down and actually deal with just the negative one, because the positive ones are nice, but the negative ones are the ones that we have to tend to. So that was the day that I realized that, wow, this is what it takes to, you know, like with a lot of power comes, you know, with responsibility, you have to take care of your people, and these are the people who are upset, and you have to like respond to them. So it took us like a full 1 day or two to gain perspective, at least for me. But I think I did feel very grateful for that experience, even though within that 1 or 2 day window was really, really stressful, and I did like cry a couple of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that, I realized that people are upset because the site is actually big enough that, some people are going to be upset, and, whatever you do.
Yeah, it's a meaningful site if people are getting upset about it.
Yeah.
But that's hard. I mean, running a startup is emotional, even when it's not family run. And this is family run, which makes it probably all the more emotional.
It is. Yeah, it is. We have to try really, really hard to kind of separate the two, right? Even though, I mean, the whole concept of separating the two of work life is kind of constructed. I don't think it can ever be achieved.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But yeah, trying to see that it's a business and it's also a family-run business, I think has been one of the most important learnings for me. And I think I really wouldn't do it any other way, even though it comes with its hardships. It's a lot like the goods is like a lot better, but like the bad is also more exacerbated because you can't run away from it.
Yeah. So how do you manage, I guess, just like the constant hustle? Because when you're running a startup that has sort of this many people owning equity and publishing and reading, plus you're dealing then with sort of all of Medium's red tape and like what you are and aren't allowed to do, I imagine that you have a never-ending to-do list. Mm-hmm. How do you manage the hustle?
I think I have to thank a lot of the part-time people that we recently recruited. Actually, we never realized how crucial it is to actually have a team. Like, funnily enough, we've all been working with teams, big teams, small teams before, but for some reason with this business, we thought for the first 2-3 years, it can just be like a 2-person business, or even a one-man show for the first 2 years. But no, it's been so tremendously helpful whenever we have more people on board. So I actually have 3 assistants.
Wow.
And I want to give them a shout out. So Tana, Hung, and Daria, if you listen to this, I owe a lot of my to-do list to you, because before that it was never ending, like you say. But I think with the help of all of these part-time people, all of a sudden you realize that there's actually going to be an end date to this particular task. It's never going to be put off forever. And if these people, even though they are part-time, can come in, believe in the business, and actually move it forward, that means that other people can do the same thing too. So I think I'm very looking forward to kind of grow the team even bigger, and at some point we're going to be just obsolete and sit back and be all right, let's hang out with Nora, you know, and not really have to worry. Because right now it's just 100% of our, mental capacity is split between family and Hacker Noon. There's never a time where we don't have to think of it at all. And I really look forward to a day where it's going to be so efficient as a business that we might be affording, not thinking about the business for 1 second. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, how do you as you're on the back end of things, you're trying to grow Hacker Noon to be even bigger, which means operations are going to get even more complicated. Mm-hmm. You've already started to hire contractors and things to help manage that. How do you make that transition, and how do you find people that you can trust with kind of your baby, trust with your startup? Maybe I'll just leave it open-ended, a bit open-ended like that and kind of vague. But I'm curious because this is something that I've struggled with, not only on the startup side, but also just on a research side. Trying to find help with research can be difficult.
Right. Yeah. I think this is a weird business that actually has attracted a lot of people, and mostly for the right reasons. People don't really expect this to be a smooth ride, whenever they come on board. They like we always a lot more apologetic than we need to when it comes to things that don't run well in the business, and people seem to be doing fine. Like they come on board, they get a lot of training, they understand the magnitude of the business, and they just kind of dive their heads in. I think the area where we have a little bit of trouble is kind of like right now everyone is like all over the place, right? Like we have two of us in Colorado, we have someone, a couple of people in San Francisco, and then the rest is just kind of like all over the world, like India, like Ukraine, France, like all over the place, Amsterdam. So the problem is we really want all of these people to feel like they're working towards the same thing, and not just like by the title of their job or like by the fact that they're all on the same Slack channel. We really want to make sure that people feel appreciated and feel like they're part of the like a big team. So one way we decided to help with that a little bit is every now and then, every once a quarter, we have like a big team gathering. So no matter where you are, like we just kind of invite people to that same place and kind of work out of the same place for a little bit. So that helps a little bit. But I think the problem will only get bigger in the future, like if we even have a bigger team. So we might need to have more than just one like Colorado, like headquarters, which is what we are right now, like our family. But yeah, we might need to have some person who's like in charge of like one office elsewhere, and that place could be like where all of the other people can also go to. I do believe in the value of remote work, though. I think it just empowers people a lot. We have, most of our part-time people actually have other jobs as well, as they should, because it's just a part-time job. But they feel free to do that, they don't feel like they're just wasting their time, They able to learn a lot from this job, and also, hustle with the other one as well. So I think I find value in that. And because these remote people, they don't feel obliged to show up for certain things, like they actually in their free time can do more things that help with the areas of the business that we want them to help with. So it's like a structure that really, really works well for us. I think in the future, we would want to have that ratio being more like 50-50, more than like one, like it's 1-3 right now, and I want it to be like 1-1 in terms of ratio of remote workers versus like people who work on physical locations.
Yeah. So you had mentioned to me just in a conversation a while ago this idea of hustle porn.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that a little bit. But first, like where did that term come from, hustle porn?
I don't know where it actually came from like first, but I recently came across that on Alexis Ohanian, who's the co-founder of Reddit, and he also invested on Hackanoon via his VC firm. And I just connected so much with that idea. Like basically it was explaining how a lot of people seem to enjoy that people have no lives, when it comes to business. Like if you like pull off all-nighters, if you're making deals left and right, if you never post a picture of like just hanging out with your family, that is like the right thing to do. And I think that's just pretty toxic, and unrealistic at the same time, because no person is, especially for someone with families like the two of us, like can relate to that, because after all of this glamour, after making deals, like you're gonna have to take care of that diaper, and you're gonna have to make that meal, no matter what. So yeah, it's I really connect with that, because I don't think it's healthy for anyone. Family or without family, they really need to also focus on something outside of work that makes them happy. And, sharing that just means that people can also feel that it's okay for them to do that, especially if you are in a position of power. Like this guy, Alexis, he has a lot of power. And I would imagine the people who he's talking about, like his partners or whatnot, also, in this position to like set a lot of examples for other people. Like if you have to be, someone has to go for it and say, like, I need time with my family, and that is okay, and that's healthy, and it's actually helping my business, and I'm all for that.
Yeah. I think that this idea of hard work is really important, and I really agree with having that people should have a hard work ethic.
Yeah.
But it does seem like there is this strange hostility between like having a family life and having a work life. And I don't know, my husband and I disagree about this, but I think that it impacts women even more than men. That if you're a woman who is trying to work, then posting about or talking about your family online, it seems like you pay more of like I think in psychology it's called like the woman penalty or the family penalty, something like that. It seems like there is more of a strike against you than if you're a businessman who posts about having free time here and there. I could be wrong about that, like I said, but it does seem like you have to be kind of cautious about how you frame yourself as a woman who is married or has children and is running a startup or all of the above together. It seems like you have to be very careful about that. And I think that's unfortunate, but it's kind of a reality.
It is. I think it's funny when I think there was this one instance where David and I couldn't find a babysitter for this one event that we went to in University of Boulder. So we were invited, both of us, to talk on 2 different panels. So, it's just kind of like today, like someone has to take care of our daughter, and we couldn't find a nanny there. We literally just brought her to the panel. And one of my friends actually like say, do you think that like people would be okay with that? Like whenever I finished already with the panel and like talked about how, rewarding, even though it's hard, how rewarding it was that we actually able to tackle both, like, taking care of Nora as well as just going and, finishing this panel. I think there's this weird thing when people think that if you like have kids in the picture or show anything that's like not the business, that means that you are not doing the business. I'm on the other hand, I am a very proud mom, and like I never really like get that, and I just basically, regardless of what people say about like mom versus working mom, which by the way is also a false dichotomy. Like there's no mom versus working mom. There's just mom. Like even or
you
more
are like there's no mom that's not a working mom.
No, there's no mom that's not a working mom.
Because
You're doing unpaid work.
Yeah.
By the way, like if you guys follow Andrew Yang, like this guy, he's like pretty out there in terms of like universal basic income and all of his ideas. But he did mention like actually paying people for whatever work they like, like just paying people, and because being a mom is unpaid work. So if you just like have this income, doesn't mean that you just like you earn it. Like it's not something that should be unpaid. But anyway, going back to my thing, it's definitely something I felt that being a woman, definitely being a mom. Like sometimes people kind of just put that title above, my other things, and I'm very proudly, being a mom. But it does make me question, like, why don't you mention that I'm also like a CEO of this, COO of this company. I'm also running this, running that. Like they would rather say like my domestic titles, which is interesting, you know. And like sometimes people also have a tendency to take me less seriously if like I like mention like family related stuff instead of business stuff, which is also interesting.
Yeah. I mean, going back to I'm not familiar with Andrew Yang's kind of proposed policies about universal basic income.
Yeah.
I'm also not familiar with his like policies about like whether or not mom. It sounded like you're saying he's implied that mom should maybe be
like
or
he definitely
stay-at-home parents, I should say.
Stay-at-home parents should, like, he say that everyone deserves this much money, and he also goes off the tangent a little bit, saying that moms like deserve to be paid anyway, so this is like a good idea. So
I'm not sure about. I don't know the details of that. I think what is interesting, though, in what I'm hearing as people talk about universal basic income, or they're talking about like the labor that you do every day that's not necessarily paid. Actually, just a couple of months ago, I did a podcast with Dan Finlay, who's the MetaMask co-founder, and we were talking about his ideas of what the economy might look like in the future. And he talked a lot about like human trust and how there are things of value that we do for each other all the time on these micro levels that no one thinks to like reimburse with money, and we wouldn't necessarily want it to be reimbursed with money, but just holding the door open was an example he gave. Like just holding the door open for someone is an act of value, but we don't think of that in economic terms necessarily. When it comes to this universal basic income stuff and parenthood, I think one of the things that people are identifying, even if universal basic income is or is not the right way to go about this, is that humans are intrinsically valuable. And yet when they come into the world as infants, toddlers, babies, they have no economic standing on their own. They're born into whatever household economic situation they have, and that household, depending on how the caretakers are doing financially, that's basically how the kid is doing financially. But so if the parents are in poverty, totally broke, can't afford to buy food, then they are at the mercy of whatever social systems might be in place to get them food. But if there was no welfare in the state and no like food stamps type programs and things like that, is it really right that we've constructed an economic system that places zero value on a human intrinsically, and that human has to kind of work their way up through the ranks? Probably not. Like something seems intrinsically wrong with that. On the other hand, something also seems intrinsically wrong with misaligning incentives away from being creative and working hard and whatever, building a startup or laboring in some way. And just having these conversations has made me wonder how much our economic system is broken, and maybe people are arguing politics today is so, like, I can't even hardly go look through my Twitter feed anymore because I just get so worked up seeing, people making comments from left and right. It's so infuriating. I can't even look at it. And I wonder if we're approaching this breaking point where people are like, you know what? The mom's work is valuable. And that's part of why a lot of women are so ticked off with the way things have been throughout history, and why they feel like this tension between, like you and I struggle with this tension between identity as a mom, identity as a working woman. Like maybe I'm being long-winded here, and I want you to talk, and I want to get your thoughts on just this idea.
I just love this whole explanation. I mean, it's really, it's something like in our gut that we can't really explain, right? Like most of people when they oppose to the idea, they like bring up like things like, oh, we already spend this much money, we like all of these things, like we should make them more like efficient, whatnot. But they don't, they never bring up something that they would consider so fluffy, like you say, like what about the humans, what about just the fact of being born, and like living in this world. So definitely I agree with that. But I don't think 1,000 would just do everything. It's really just like a starting point of like, okay, you have some value, but you have to work for your values, and this is like a way to kind of help you do that. Like it can't replace, actually finding a job, like people find values in working as well. That's why I think people, I know a lot of moms who just like perfectly happy with like staying at home and like taking care of their children, nurturing and like building a family. For me though, I find value also in work. Like it's like money aside, it's just when you also building something and like outside of yourself, you just feel like you are part of a society and you feel valued and you can go on. So I think that's why I work. It's not because I have to really, like, my husband probably would be fine, for the next 1 year or so. Maybe not like with the crowdfunding stuff, but up until that point, was the business was probably going to be fine. But I really found values in just helping also.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there is something intrinsically, just like inherently pleasurable. Like it feels good to be productive and to do hard work.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so kind of echoing back these ideas, the CEO of Era, of our company, wrote actually on Hacker Noon an article about what he's calling freeism, but it is sort of this idea, this economic idea that I'm kind of dancing around here, that maybe we need to rethink, now that we're in a position where digital currencies are enabling unique transactions that weren't possible before. Maybe we can flip economics on its head so that these jobs that were previously, and still are, I mean, I'm saying previously, but still are not paid, for instance, being a mom. Yeah. Maybe there's a way for us to align the value, economic value, with actual human value, such that, a baby in the world is valuable to the world, not just somebody who now takes an adult off of the job market while they're getting cared for during the day,
Yeah. I'm very hopeful for that. I think we're still very early in,
we are
in the development of blockchain, but I think one of the great ways for it to have like tangible, impactful, legacy is that just like to level the playing field and making sure that every single thing we do, not just the things that the capitalist system says that it is a thing of value, but anything we do at all would have a transactional value to it. I mean, wouldn't that be a great world? I would love to to live to that future.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, there are some behaviors I think that I wouldn't want to be a positive. Like, for instance, I think people are spending, I'm going to be really controversial here. I'm probably going to make a lot of people mad. But I feel like time spent watching, like, a show like Game of Thrones. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm going to throw myself under the bus here for a second. I haven't watched the show.
Me neither.
So
I
maybe
think you're the only, me and you are the only
I might be an unfair judge because I haven't gotten sucked into the Game of Thrones verse yet. But to me, that doesn't seem like the best of human nature that I necessarily want to incentivize. Like, do I, I don't know, like 10,000 years from now, if the planet is still around and all this stuff, and some like futuristic archaeologists come back and dig up all of these things, do we really want them seeing Game of Thrones as like what our society, as representative of our society? I don't know. But do we want them to see like rearing young children and being creative and creating Hacker Noon and empowering people to have these dependent platforms? Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Well, and they can just see both. And, they see different sides of humans. And I haven't got into Game of Thrones, but I have got into series and books and like the cult culture before. So I'm like a total Harry Potter fan. So I understand. Like whenever I ask people like, why would I need to watch Game of Thrones? They like, well, imagine if someone hasn't watched Harry Potter or like read Harry Potter. I'm like, okay, I can get it.
Yeah.
So, but I think if like years and years in the future, I would definitely want humans to, have a positive impact and just positive impression on, an alien. Like I don't want it to be like total
Yeah.
totally destroyed, which, on worst days,
Yeah.
does seem like what the world
Well,
is heading.
it does seem like looking back, archaeologists of the future might look back and be like, this is really weird that parenting isn't labor that was valued. Like, that is bizarre. Just from a species standpoint, again, I guess I'm being really controversial because a lot of people just think that we shouldn't really have that many kids because they're worried about overpopulation and stuff like that. But it does seem like from a species perspective, it's bizarre that we've created this whole like really complex economy, but we don't reward the basic labor that has always existed of survival and continuing the species,
Yeah.
It's funny.
I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate here
Please
a little
do.
bit, but
Please do.
I think we're also talking pretty much in similar languages of like individualism, capitalistic values, and Western society, right? Like I'm from Vietnam, so whenever it comes to like attributing a money value to something, people kind of like, ugh, look at that like that, because a lot of the times the value of something is really, like you say, it's intrinsic.
Intrinsic. Yeah. You got it.
But whenever you put a money thing to it, it somehow, at least in like the Eastern point of view, like at least where I come from, it like loses.
It taints its
it
value.
taints it somehow. There's a lot of things that, people should charge other people for and they don't. Like it's a very communal, like spirited community, right? Like it's people, you go to a restaurant, for example, here people would ask you like, can I touch your baby? Or maybe they don't even ask at all because they just assume that no, like you wouldn't touch a stranger's baby. In Vietnam, you go to a restaurant, you just put your baby out there, literally 3 waiters will take care of her. Like no problem. It's just assumed that someone will take care of your baby and you would have a good meal. And people just do that, like without even thinking about it. And I'm talking about not just like little stuff like that. Like anything is directed towards like the mindset of with that advanced we versus like with that advanced me. So because of that, the value is really in like I don't know, like you help me, I help you kind of.
Yeah, there's sort of this
mentality.
like ethical layer on top that adds beauty back into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of transactions, even though they are not recorded formally as a transaction, like a lot of people, in order to function well in society, already have done some sort of recording of that. Like for example, if like someone helped me with my baby, I probably would give them a gift back. It's definitely not like recorded in like the GDP, right? But it definitely like between you and I, like I'm a little bit like worse off because I give away some, but then I'm better off because
I constructed a social capital that of gift giving kind of back and forth.
And like there's just so many other examples too, like bribing in like the developing countries is really just a form of efficient transactions. Like people like just really don't want to go through bureaucracy and don't want to go through like all this paperwork. So instead of that, they just give the money straight to the people who are actually going to perform the work.
That's so interesting. It's like, it's fascinating that I think what you're identifying is that like money seems to carry with it a type of impurity, and once you mix it into a human interaction, the human interaction becomes like less pure or less meaningful somehow.
Sometimes,
and that's interesting.
Like with the Eastern, like super like communal, like just like communal value. I think it can totally mean that, but I think it's hard. Like you can't really separate any of these value systems anymore because just everything's
like an amalgamation.
Yeah, like you can be a very communal society, but you have been function as under capitalism for like ages.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I'm just still trying to wrap my head around this because it seems like you've kind of identified that people sort of think of things in two spheres. And I think you're right. So I want to put words to this, and I want you to help flesh this out and see if you even agree, because maybe you don't. But what I was reading into your comments is, well, there's sort of these two spheres. There's sort of this economic service sphere where I am doing a service like shining your shoes, dry cleaning your clothes, driving you to the airport, whatever it might be. And because I have hired you in that context, I then expect money to be exchanged. But in the context of like being in relationship with a friend or family member, like for instance, the baby and the mom I was mentioning earlier, or the dad, I guess I'm being sexist. So in the context of, a parent-child relationship, that somehow if you started to add in money, that the parent makes money by taking care of their child, that it represents sort of this mixing of spheres that people don't like to have mixed together. So that's interesting to me to have those separate spheres, and I wonder if that's because on the social side of, on the money transaction side of things, transactions are right now zero sum. So I've been, in my Hacker Noon, I don't know if you've read any of my Hacker Noon articles, but I've been on about zero sum kind of transactions versus additive only transactions. In economics, things right now are zero sum. So if I buy a good, I give somebody money, and in exchange, I get a product, but I lose money. In a social setting, the exchange is a little bit less clear, and it's a little bit less zero sum I'm talking about like the ledger side of economics. In a social interaction, it's a little bit less zero sum because I'm taking care of my child, and my child is being taken care of, and this is a meaningful, purposeful, and rewarding experience for both of us. So there's not like this win-loss.
Right.
So maybe part of what feels wrong about it.
What I think is missing from that side that you mentioned is like, it's not just the exchange and it's not just the exchange of labor. Like, people actually do find meaning in shining shoes and in driving people, helping people. Like, whenever you like interview like all of these service people, they probably wouldn't say that it's just my job. Like, I'm actually making people's days better. So like, how do you like record that? How do you really like put a value,
meaning or value?
Yeah, put a value to that. And that is one point. And another point is also, that's again is like a very Western versus Eastern value system thing. But like in Vietnam, there's no such thing as like family versus strangers. Everyone is family. Like, it's in the language. So like, I would call you little sister because you're a little bit younger than me, and even though we're not related. So it's like, it's already ingrained in the culture and in the language that we all in this together. And it's not just like in my interest to make sure that my neighbor's house like doesn't get robbed, like, it's not just in their interest, it's also in my interest, because I don't want my neighbors to get into trouble, because we all in this together. And I think
that's beautiful. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful, right? Like, I think the most ideal world would be one that sets itself up as like, yes, we're in this together, this is win-win that we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get everybody to succeed together. So the question is, can we come up with a system that allows everybody to win-win together, but also rewards effort at the same time? And I think that that's possible, but I don't think it was necessarily the case prior to digital currencies on the economic side. I think culturally that happens.
And also, I would be careful with saying win-win, because by de facto, we're very not win-win, like a very unequal society in the first place. I recently read this book. Basically, it talks about how win-win, it's just like the Silicon Valley tech people's like dogma of like saying that like, I'm actually not benefiting from you, like you can also benefiting, but like the magnitude of the benefits is like totally
It's
different.
different.
Like you benefit this much, but I benefit like a whole lot. So yeah, how do you also like deal with a society and with a system that's like doesn't put everyone on equal footing in the first place? Like when you were born, you were just not born with like equal set of rights, even though it's such a beautiful sentiment, right? Like it's great to think that everyone is born equal, but people are not. And, like it really depends on like circumstances and things that outside of your control. And
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate with you now too.
Great.
So, it's still better to have like, here's a little bit of benefit for this person and a lot of benefit for this person. That's still benefiting everyone. And I feel like we're still not even at the point where that's happening yet.
It's definitely great. Like it's definitely better for things to go better, even just a little bit. I think the I'm gonna have to remember the author's name, but the book is called "The Winners Take All," and it talks about how this kind of mentality really plays a disservice to people who stand a lot to lose. Like maybe 1 out of 10 times they're gonna win, but a lot of times because of this mentality, they actually lose more than the people who say, "Oh, just win-win," because. So I think one example that he came up with I think it was how Asana was started as like this like really like how do you improve productivity, right? Like that was the big question. Like I'm gonna make the world a better place. How like and my way of making the world a better place is to help improve productivity. Great, awesome sentiment. And then he goes out and Asana is now great. Like many countries in the world and many different teams in the world are using Asana as a productivity tool. The problem though is that the world is actually a lot more, productive than it used to be. Like it's not really a problem that needs the most of your attention. Like actually most people are like 2 or 3 times more productive than they were decades ago, but they are not paid more. Like that was like the real problem that the author in the Winners Take All book was talking about. Like, 2 or 3 times more productive, but not 2 or 3 times higher, standard wage. And so like by just like talking all about this win-win situation, you're missing out on like the real problem. Like you have a lot of time on your hand and you have a lot of options to choose. Like how do you focus your effort on the things that will like make the society better as a whole, as opposed to like make also you better like first and foremost, and then everyone else a little bit better or a little bit less, doesn't matter. It's I don't know how to solve the problem of inequality. Like I don't think anyone can claim to solve that, but at least understanding that you have to always contextualize it into the bigger picture of things, and like doing it, being aware of the problem to start with it. That's how you start to be that's how you start to even start thinking about the problem and maybe solving them. Yeah.
So for Hacker Noon, this is like kind of a funny jump back, but I'm just thinking
I love talking to you, by the way, because like you've just very like I remember my days of being like in the academia, like more education field. Like we talk a lot more about things like this than like now. Like my day to day is more like a lot more in the weeds of like business, stuff, like payroll, like how do I make sure that I understand this business plans versus that business plan. Yeah, it's much less more.
Well, I'm enjoying talking to you too, because I think we both have kind of one foot in each world, or at least some background in each world. But so turning back to Hacker Noon and taking these theories and putting them into practice, like we talked about very early in this conversation. Have you thought about that in the context of this new shift of Hacker Noon? Because you guys are leaving Medium because they're trying to control basically because they're trying to be a walled garden. They're trying to control the monetization model. They're not wanting you to monetize in the way that's actually beneficial for you,
Right.
even though it might be beneficial for their ecosystem as a whole.
Right.
Have you thought about this kind of idea of you guys winning and how much that winning means relative to your writers as well? Because I'm definitely under the impression that the move is kind of seen as a win-win type idea where you guys are gaining your independence and ability to keep a sponsorship model, but your writers and contributors are also benefiting because they're allowed to build up more of a platform for themselves on your site by collecting emails or encouraging people to buy their books or whatever it might be.
Right.
So I guess the question is, have you thought about this dynamic of win-win, and who does stand to win more? Or are you winning equally between you and your contributors? And I guess I'm putting you in an uncomfortable question potentially, so you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But
no, I think that is a great question. Like, there's no doubt that this move benefits us as a business for sure. And in order to be sustainable as one business, you can't just ignore that whole, like doing the writers right, like I say from the very beginning, because that is going to be, the future of our business. Like, whether or not we stand to succeed or not depends on how well we can serve the writers. So the way I think about it is we have to move off of the medium serving our own interests very first, because without it, there would be no Hacker Noon, like we would not be able to sustainably run this business at all. Like, who's going to pay all of these people, spending all of their time? Because all of the writers, our writers, they have their own businesses, so they also, Hacker Noon is just part of the much, much bigger picture of their own life, of their own career. So how Hacker Noon can fit into that would be a question and a problem that we would have to solve. But for us as a business, we have to move off medium because it's in our best interest not to be controlled by someone else and, not to cut off our wings. So now we try building bit by bit, and it starts with building our wings first. Now, after we've done that, I think one of the things that I'm most interested in and most excited about is talking about the future of Hacker Noon being so truly decentralized. And what that means, it can mean like everyone who has contributed to a Hacker Noon would have a point system, would have some kind of rewards system that would actually build into the fact that they would own a little bit of Hacker Noon. Like, that would be one way we can go. Another way, like David has talked a lot about it, is how do you think even more deeply into things like equity of the site, and how can that be decentralized to the people who have contributed to the site. But that is like really, really like 2 or 3 years, much more in the future. Right now, we're going to focus on moving off medium, making sure that we serving the writer's intent of publishing on Hacker Noon, which is having more audience, having more people as eyeballs on their piece, and how do you like 10x, the people who will normally read the writers without publishing on Hacker Noon, 10x, 20x, maybe even more than that. Building their own audience is also important to us. So, what is a platform really if you don't even have access to the people who use your platform? And that goes with our writers too. Like, each writers bring in a little bit of their own audience to ours, so they deserve to have access to their own readers, to their own audience. So I think having very transparently kind of a method for people to go back and forth between writers and readers is important.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, like, for the far future, as I say, and I'm not gonna promise anything like that, like a lawyer might look into and be like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. But I think it's pretty safe and fair to say that that is in line, like having writers owning a little bit of Hacker Noon is definitely part of our plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. And I think that that's maybe a good place and a positive note to leave off on. So, Ling, thank you so much for
Thank you so much.
being
It was
here. I
so
love this
fun.
conversation. So,
Yeah. Thank
you.
you.